Hello, welcome. I'm Hannah, and today we're going to be talking about my Black Friday order from Copacetic. We'll talk a little bit more later about the experience of ordering, but I'm really excited to dive into the products. Here was the idea behind the order. Black Friday of 2022, I had made my first and only ever purchase from Copacetic before this order, and I had bought a couple nail polishes, which I love and treasure, and I had bought 4 eyeshadows, which I did an eye swatching video on at the time. I can link that down below. The 2 more expensive shadows I did not care for. I decluttered them pretty soon after, but the 2 less expensive shadows I loved and I continue to love. One of those shadows is their flaky formula, but I don't feel like it's as flaky as the flaky formulas of other shadows. It does kind of like smooth really nicely on my lid. It leaves a beautiful color. It's the shade Bal Drop. But I've seen comments being like Copacetic's flaky shadows are hit or miss, but I didn't know like which ones are hits and which ones are misses. So I wanted to dive more into the flaky shadows and hopefully answer that question for myself, for you if you're wondering it also. And I decided to focus on their like interesting neutrals. I love a good interesting neutral. I kind of can't help it. And the product shots on their website look so beautiful and nuanced, and that's what I'm all about. So I picked out 7 interesting neutral looking shadows. Seeing them in person, they are a little bit different than what I expected. This one's more teal than I thought. This one's deeper than I thought, but I'm curious to see if we have any like color wins, if we have formula wins or misses, and we're going to find that out by eye swatching them. So let's just zoom in and get that started. I already mentioned these being inexpensive. I just wanted to say just how inexpensive they are. They retail for $5. The Black Friday sale in 2022, I think they were $2. This year they were 40% off, so they were $3, but still $3 for shadows, that's like Luxie prices. I'm thrilled to pay that, and it also makes me more forgiving if some of the shadows aren't as good. I'm really banking on having like a couple winners. I'm really hoping for that, because I feel like if there's a couple winners, I might be okay with having a couple losers. The first shadow is called Resentful Longing, and I think this just looks so beautiful. To my eye, it looks like a champagne with like a teal shine to it. It looks very wet in the pan. On the website, it's described as a pale green to peach pressed flaky. I also ordered a couple of the nail polishes, and I put like this orangey one over a cool toned brown today. I'm curious to see. I'm expecting, yeah, it feels kind of dry. I do feel the flakes in the pan, but on my finger, I think you can see it doesn't look like that sheer. Like it looks like it has a base, and it's just like the sparkle particles are just larger particles. I don't have anything on my eye. I know some people might choose to wear this with like a glitter primer, but I don't even own a glitter primer now. That looks really pretty. I do think I could have gone in like a little bit more controlled, a little bit more gentle, a little bit less product on my finger, but the way it is, it's a pretty minimal amount of fallout, and I'm sure if I did those things, I could probably eliminate getting that fallout. It also looks really similar to how it does in the pan on the eye. Yeah, I like this. I think this is such like an easy to wear, interesting shadow. I'm curious how it would look on deeper skin tones, but I feel like on me, that champagne tan base really does blend in with my skin. So it almost gives like just a sparkle effect, or like you just see that intense sparkle when it hits the light. This is really pretty though. I'm going to call this one a winner, and I think it could be even more of a winner if I get used to using a little bit of a lighter hand with it. Hopefully it's not downhill from here. The next shadow is Elizabeth Browning, and this one looks a lot more white in the pan than I expected. Yeah, it kind of looks like a white iridescent with maybe like a little bit of blue in there. It's described on the website as an iridescent green shift pressed flaky. I thought from the product picture, or this swatch picture they have on the website, that it might be like a little bit more silvery, but let's see. This one kind of feels softer. Oh. Huh, maybe this is the curse of the flakies. It like picked up very unevenly on my finger. I don't think I got that on camera, but I already like knocked like a whole flake out of the pan. Huh. Yeah, I'm a little skeptical. I'm kind of like pressing. Okay, yeah, this one feels messier. It still is going on pretty. Okay, and that's quite pretty. And maybe, you know, I felt like I was seeing the flakes of it on my eyelashes and stuff, but it doesn't really look that much messier than this one does. You know, I like that they're not misrepresenting these shadows as not being flaky. I also like that it's such a low price point. Like, it was such a bummer last year when Terra Moons started releasing those super flaky multichromes and you're paying like $18 for a shadow that doesn't give even coverage and it's like making a whole mess. But the lower price point here is definitely making me more forgiving, and also I feel like I genuinely like this formula more than I liked the Terra Moons formula. So I don't know, I think this one felt a little bit less contained when it went on, and maybe that's why like you see more in my crease, that it kind of just like went a little bit farther than this one went. But I do think the effect on my eye is really pretty. And I could imagine, especially if you're someone who uses a glitter glue, just like tapping this on as like a little bit of an accent over a look, just to add some of this like wet look shine. Color-wise, I definitely like this one better. I don't know if I really needed both of these, but they're both pretty, both shiny, wet effect. I like them. Because there's so much sparkle in these, it makes them a little bit harder to remove, so we can see a lot of sparkle residue already, but I think we'll be able to distinguish from what's left over and what's new, I hope, because we still have like 5 to go. So the next two I paired because they do look pretty similar in the pan. They both kind of look like variations of rose gold, with this one being a little bit more pink. Let's start with the one that's a little bit less pink. It's the shade Butternut Squash. It doesn't look like two-toned in the pan or anything. It just looks like kind of a peachy champagne with like white sparkle to it. It's described on the website as a champagne pressed flaky. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay, I think this one picked up a little bit more like the first one. Smaller flake particles. Yeah, it definitely feels more under control as I put it on. And actually, it looks a little duochromatic, which I wasn't expecting, and the first two weren't. But I think we could see where like the light is hitting it. It's like a really intense golden bronze, but where the light's not hitting it, it looks more of like a cool toned pink. I like that. I think of the 3 that we've tried so far, the first one color-wise is probably my favorite, but I think this one's like the most interesting thus far. It was, as I said, easy to control, an interesting effect, and I think it's still like just as easy to wear, at least in my opinion. Cool, I wasn't expecting to have anything like that going on. The next shade is As the World Falls Down. I think this one looks like a true champagne. I feel like I'm saying champagne for all of these, but these all look pretty champagne. This one's described as an ultra sparkly blue and tan pressed flaky. So that description makes me feel excited. This one looks a little bit chunkier in the pickup on the finger, but not as chunky as that second one did. I think this one feels a little bit rougher going on, but you get that payoff because that looks super sparkly. I feel like this looks like the sparkliest of them all so far. Yeah, the other 3 have felt very light on my lids, and I think this one feels the heaviest, but at least it doesn't feel the heaviest like without a reason. Like, I think you can tell looking at these two that this one has a bit more of a presence to it. I will say though, I didn't expect these 4 to have as much in common as they do. Like, I feel like right now in this moment, if I was making this order over with the information that I have now, I would choose one of the first ones, and I feel like this kind of falls into the same category of those, and I would choose this one because it has a duochrome that makes it more special. It has that like golden shimmer, but this and the first 2 are all like a very light tan base with a cool toned sparkle on top, and in this moment I feel like I would choose the first one, Resentful Longing, over Elizabeth Browning and this one, As the World Falls Down. But I don't think any of them are bad. I think they are kind of like what I signed up for and what I was expecting. Now, when I opened up the next two, I was surprised to see that this is as like minty as it is, and this one was as dark as it is. But now I feel kind of excited knowing that I'm sure to get something pretty different than what I experienced in the first four. So let's start with this one. I do enjoy a good mint shimmer from time to time, so we'll see how this looks. It's described as a mint green pressed flaky, straight to the point. This one feels like more softly pressed. Like I tapped my finger in so barely and it already came up. So I'm a little nervous and I'm anticipating this being like a little bit messier. So I'm gonna start with some tapping. My eyelids might have like a little tack to them from wiping off the past eyeshadow, but I felt that flake like down to my lip. Yeah, this one feels a little bit less special. I don't know if I should have picked it up more delicately, but as I said, it picked up like the second my finger touched down on it, so more delicately would mean like the slightest amount of touch to pick up product. But I can see how it like, you know, it's gathered in my crease. Yeah, I think this particular one I feel the least impressed with. I think those first neutrals do have a leg up of being closer to my skin tone, so like small imperfections like that aren't as noticeable, but this is a higher contrast, so you see these things, and I think it just looks like a little bit more sloppy. I think if I was looking for a mint green all over my lid, I would just stick with one of the ones I already have. I think Mint Chip from Shine by SD is a pretty, like, straight and narrow mint, but then there's, like, Oppie from Terra Moons and Emblem from Cleona, which are, like, multi-chrome mints. Yeah, I could try to find a way to enjoy this, like, tapping the smallest amount over a look, but I wouldn't wear it like this. So the next one is Nocturnal Wings. This is the product picture, and this is the product. Maybe you can tell it has that dark base, but I wasn't expecting that. I thought it would just be kind of more of like a purpley mint, but it looks more of like a grayed out purple in the base with those mint sparkles. I still see that. It's described as a grungy purple pressed flaky. I can't remember if I said the name. It's Nocturnal Wings, which I will say is a cool name. A lot of these have like cool names. Like I want to know the story behind them. This one, oh. I was gonna say this one feels harder pressed, and then I looked at my finger, I'm like, yeah, like nothing came up, so I'm gonna have to try a little bit harder. Alright, still very little came up. Do a little swirl in the pan. Okay, and that looks like a decent finger swatch. That is interesting what a stark contrast this is from the last one, which I barely tapped, and I got probably like too much product. And this one I had to try. This also feels like the creamiest. I don't know if that's because I had to like rub my finger in more, so I got more of like, you know, whatever makes the product stick together in here, but it definitely feels more like gelatinous than the other ones. Okay, this is interesting. I thought it was going to look a lot darker on my eyes, but I feel like that purple base is pretty sheer. Like it's kind of like a jelly effect purple base. I also do like the fact that I was able to go in more heavy-handed and like smooth it out. I would say that is my preference over products that I have to be overly delicate about. I have to like remember before I even touch them. And this, it's like, if I touch it lightly, the worst that happens is I have to go touch it again. So yeah, I like that it's different. I wouldn't call it, I don't think I'd call this an interesting neutral. I think I would call this like a purple with teal. It kind of even reminds me of Frozen Waves from Divina. That's a similar type of shadow, and I still feel like I would probably reach for that over this. And that's not even like that much of an insult to the shadow. It's just like I already have a relationship with that shadow. I would say the only bad thing is like the base looks a little bit streaky when it's out of the light. So I'm not really sure what makes that happen. It's not the biggest deal breaker for me, but if I am nitpicking because it's up against like a favorite shadow of mine, that does make another point go to the other shadow. Let me try to rephrase this also. I do think powder shadows are the easiest to work with. I'm willing to work with more unique formulas if there's a payoff to it, but I think the look of this is very similar to something that I know exactly how to use and has been like time tested for me. So for that reason, I would choose that one over this. However, this one's a lot more inexpensive and it still is a nice shadow. Maybe another thing too, I don't think it's quite as sparkly. Like you see the sparkle in the light, but when I look at it this way, like the sparkle particles look so small and pinpointed. I'm kind of all over the place with my thoughts on this one. I'm not obsessed. I'm trying to give a reason as to why, but I'm not super obsessed with this one. I think it's nice. It might have something to do with the fact that I just removed 3 shadows from, you know, each eyeball, but removing Flora, the mint one from this eye, definitely hurt. Like it definitely felt like it irritated my eye. I think that makes sense with the larger particle size, but just wanted to note that if you have sensitive eyelids. We're on to the last one, so I did put some eye primer on. I don't feel like it helps the shadows perform, but I do think it helps the shadows last longer, and I'm planning to make a look with this last one after we eye swatch it. This last one is called Long Farewell, and I might be the most excited about this one. It does look like a little bit harder pressed in the pan. I don't know if that will be the case, but I think the color of it looks pretty. It looks like a pinky base with an icy blue sparkle to it. It's described as a pink blush pressed flaky with a blue aura flip. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this one's kind of doing the same thing as the last one did. I guess not as bad. It didn't feel like it really picked up much. There is some there, but I'm gonna go in again to try to get a little bit more. Okay, let's see. Huh. Yeah, this one's getting a little bit messy. I mean, my face is kind of like messy beyond repair at this point anyway, but you saw the flake that just fell off my eyelashes. I think there are a couple like distinct different feels to these, because not only with this and the last one did I have to like get in there a little bit more, but it looks a lot thinner on the eye. It has like a lot less impact. Yeah, like I feel like my first impression on this is that I'm just not impressed. Like, I don't think it's bad, but it's probably the worst of all of them that we've tried. Like, I feel like this has such little impact. There's probably tons of shadows I have in my collection. I feel like Luxie in particular has done shadows like this, where it's like pink with blue, but it's like way more sparkly than this. Yeah, I do kind of feel like this one is a bit of a miss, which is disappointing because I thought this one might be my favorite one, but I am not going to remove another shadow from my eyes right now, so I'm gonna make a look around this. I might end up maybe layering, playing with some of the other ones too to make this a little bit more of like a dramatic look. I don't know. We'll see. I'll be right back. And this is the finished look. I'm feeling kind of but it is funny, looking at it in this light, I'm like, this looks super pretty. Looking at it in the other light, I'm like, I like it, but I still feel disappointed by the shadows. But looking at it here, I'm like, hello, sparkles. Nice to meet ya. Let me tell you what I did. As you know, I started with Long Farewell all over the lid, and then I added in a couple Luxie mattes that are in like my Perfect 40 palette that was last week's video. I just did like a peachy one in the crease and like a slightly deeper peachy one on the outer corner. And then I wanted to tie the shimmer in to like the deeper part, so I was like, let me try this guy again, Nocturne Wings. But I just felt like trying to put it in this spot, like I wasn't adding any color and I was just adding like some piecey splotches of sparkle, and like I could see just like the spots there and it looked weird. And then I tapped over the whole thing with Flora. So I used like my 3 least favorite shadows, but I think that Flora is what's making the look pretty now. I know I was disappointed using this like by itself, but maybe it is just the type of shadow that like I'm not gonna use by itself, but I could still enjoy it to like spice up a look. Because I truly think like without this look would be so dull. I use those same 2 mattes for my lower lash line, and then I have Divina Soleil's on my inner corner. And yeah, I think the look came together in the end and taught me something interesting about Flora, but I think it reinforced not liking those other two that are on my eyes as much. So I want to show you Bal Drop, the shadow that I really loved from my purchase the year before, and the shadow that like got us into this whole mess. I'm like, at this moment, I kind of feel like, did I just happen to buy the best one that there was in the one flaky that I bought? Yeah, touching it, it feels so much softer. And when I picked it up on my finger, I'm like, this doesn't look like just like flaky particles. Like what they're describing as a flaky, I feel like this isn't it. And that made me feel like their other shadows would also not be like it. You know, I have noticed it doesn't swatch the best, but like going on my eye, it just looks like that part. It looks like a deep berry brown base with this like really beautiful teal shimmer on top. And yeah, I can confirm now that none of them felt the way that this one does. None of them looked on my finger the way that this one does. So before I was like, I feel like there's two different kinds of flakies. Now I'm feeling like there's three different kinds of flakies, and I want more of these kinds of flakies. I often wish brands used more like subdivisions to characterize their products, because I'm sure there are some people that are looking for exact qualities of lines. And yeah, I went searching for more of Bal Drop. I tried 7 shadows to find more of Bal Drop, and none of these are more of Bal Drop. Some of them are good in their own ways, as we talked about and we'll keep talking about, but swatching this one out is kind of like reinforcing that Bal Drop is superior to the 7 that I just got. I would say of the 7, there's 3 that I'm excited about, so less than a 50% success rate. Resentful Longing, which was the first one that we swatched out. Yeah, this one feels so much harder than Bal Drop, but on the eyes, as we saw, it looked very sparkly, very wet, very like simple and pretty, and it wasn't too fussy to work with. I also liked Butternut Squash because it had that unique quality of the duochrome to it. It had like a similar look to the first one, but that like intense golden shimmer in the light. So I like that about it. And then Flora, who's already had like a little bit of a redemption story. I don't think like it's my, like I could live without it. I don't think it's my favorite shadow, but this finished look that I have on proved to me that it could be a useful tool in creating a look. So I feel like if I lost this order, I would be interested in purchasing these 3. I don't think I would run out and purchase any of them, but like if I wanted to buy more nail polish, I could see myself throwing these in, and of course, Bal Drop. And then to just finish off the swatches, how did this pick up before? It's like not doing anything now. We have Elizabeth Browning and As the World Falls Down, both of which felt too similar to this first one here, Resentful Longing, but Elizabeth Browning didn't pick up quite as well, and As the World Falls Down felt harder on my eyes. It felt more like a liquid that dried down. And then Nocturnal Wings and Long Farewell, both of which didn't pick up quite as well. I had to kind of swirl in to get the flakes up. And Long Farewell didn't have as much sparkle to it. And since I went on and on about Frozen Waves before, and I have it in my handy dandy 40 pan palette, I'm gonna do a little comparison of that one. Here's what I mean, like a real swatch. Go figure, as opposed to that. Yeah, I think Frozen Waves does look brighter, but also it's hard to tell what at all is going on with Nocturnal Wings because of the abysmal swatch. So definitely would pick that one. How beautiful is that shadow? So I had mentioned earlier that this was my Black Friday order from Copacetic, and I just got it. So I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. Prior to me purchasing it on Black Friday, I think they changed to a new system. It used to be all the products were available all the time and you would just have to wait for them to make them and ship them out. But then they were trying to switch over to having products already made so then they could ship them sooner, which I think is awesome. And I really love when indie brands put more emphasis on like you know, timeliness, because there are a lot of brands that have like absurd wait times, and you know, it's more appealing. It's more appealing when brands don't have absurd wait times. But for Black Friday, they decided to make the products back in stock. So you could place an order for whatever you wanted at their sale prices, and the window for shipping was like 20 to 40 days or something like that. And those are business days. So that's like 8 weeks at a maximum, which would have been around the end of January. I remember my Black Friday order in 2022 that was also a pre-order. It shipped in like mid-December, and I was able to get an ice swatch video up before Christmas. So although the wait time said like 20 to 40 days, I was still hopeful that this would be part of my December content, but it didn't ship. And then they ended up sending an email, I'm looking at my phone now, on January 23rd, where they gave some more specific information. They said that because of where they're located, there's extremely low temperatures. School had been closed for like 2 weeks. They weren't able to go into the office, which totally understand. They also wrote that they were past the 40 business days for the Black Friday orders, 70 orders left to ship. They decided at that point to open up an option of refunds if you didn't want to wait anymore, which, you know, I get. Unforeseen circumstances. Opening up refunds seems like a fair thing because they, you know, they went past what they said they would do. I think my only complaint is that I wish they had been reaching out sooner and more regularly. Like, for instance, I love when Cleona gives updates about, like, you know, we're up to this order number, we're expected to ship this many this week, or, you know, whatever. Because it did feel a little funny to have, like, zero correspondence for, like, a whole 2 months. You know, I had moments of kind of feeling like, did my order go through? So yeah, then it was finally delivered on February 16th. So this isn't like a big complaint or anything. I just figured I would share my experience of ordering from them and also add a little bit more context to my feelings about these shadows, because I do feel pretty disappointed right now, and I feel like if I had gotten them sooner, I would feel less disappointed because there wouldn't have been as much anticipation leading me up to this moment. Along the way, I was just feeling like a little ghosted, and I wished that they had just reached out more often, sent an email to people with existing orders being like, we're working on your orders. That's kind of it. Or when the temperatures started hitting, you know, really low temperatures in January and schools were closed and everything, they could have looked at the forecast and predicted that they wouldn't be back in the office at all that week, and then sent an email saying that there's a chance we might not be able to fulfill all the orders in 40 days, but we're working on them, you know? But of course, it's a small business. I don't expect small businesses to be perfect, and as, you know, mistakes go, it's not that big of a deal. Just, again, as I said, sharing my experience. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. If you've tried the flaky shadows, if you know which ones are similar to Bal Drop in formula, please let me know. I'm desperate. I would buy more from Copacetic if I knew I was getting, like, what I want, you know? The fact that I tried out 7 and I have 3 that I kinda like, but all 3 are worse than what I was going for. A little disappointing. But yeah, if you have any information, I would love to hear. I would try again if I knew that they were more likely to be similar to the formula of Bal Drop. That's gonna be everything for today though. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. I also now have a Patreon, and I also have a fashion channel. I think at this point I'm still going to be working on my first video. If it is up, I'll write it here. Either way though, I'm going to have those linked down below. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Bye.